All right. Thank you so much for joining us for another HRI webinar. This time it's analyzing customer profitability. Let me try that again. Analyzing customer profitability with Jason Bader of the distribution team. He was with us a couple months ago, and now he's returned to offer more insights. So whether you're joining us live today or watching on the video, we thank you so much for participating. Jason, welcome once more to the HRAI stage.
And thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure to be back here.
Likewise. Before I turn it over to you, I just want to let people know that we are taking questions during this webinar. So if you'd like to ask Jason something, we'll get to that towards the end. Just put that in the chat function or the Q&A button, and we will address those questions. But for now, I will turn the show over to you, Jason.
Excellent. All right. Thank you again. All right. So today we're going to be jumping on a subject kind of near and dear to my heart. And frankly, this was one of those subjects, again, when I was a distributor, this was something that had never really even crossed my mind. I made assumptions, tons of assumptions about, well, of course, if they're a customer, they're supposed to be profitable, but I didn't know how or why. And I was fortunate enough to run across actually my predecessor in this business, the gentleman who I took over for. He shared a concept around customer profitability that absolutely blew my mind. Talking two by four to the back of the head moment, where all of a sudden lights went on, and I said, "Wow, this is going to make my company a lot of money." And to this day, it continues to be used in my brother's organization now. And I've shared this with so many different companies and really, looking for that light bulb moment or the aha moment. Because again, I think that we have, certain assumptions about which customers are paying the bills and which ones are actually, contributing profitability. And this was just, again, a very foreign concept to me. But once the light bulb went on, I thought, wow, there's a lot I can do. There's a lot of meat on this bone that I can do things with. So let's dive right into it here. So, one of the kind of first big things that, or big concepts, if you will, are all customers created equal? And I think those of us here in the room, we can, we can, look at it from a logical perspective and say, no, of course not. We treat some better than others, and we like some better than others, and some deserve our attention better than others. So, from a management perspective, we really perhaps we're somewhat jaded in our thoughts around our customer base. But what's really interesting, though, is we know that they are not created, that they're not all equal, that they deserve different levels of service and different attention. Yet we have this really odd thing that we share with our customer service people is that all customers give them everything we got, or treat, basically create or treat them equal. Give them all the great services that we provide. Free, sometimes free delivery. Hopefully, you're not in the free delivery business, but delivery, credit. Some that we'll go get things for people that non-stock items. So we'll source things for our customers. We offer sometimes bid assistance to our contractors. The list goes on and on. We have, localized inventory. So we have all these really great things that we do in the name of customer service. And what we're sharing with our customer service people is give them everything. Give them the whole shoot and match, the whole cornucopia of different services that we offer. Yet in the back of our mind, we know that not all of them deserve it. I'll keep going on this concept a little bit here so I can kind of help you make it just a little bit more clear. If you could, I would love to have you go and just gather your team. Just bring them all together and ask the question, who are our top customers? Just 1 to 10, top 10 customers. And your team's going to give you a short list there, of course. And generally speaking, they're going to rank that on volume, top to bottom, who spends the most money. So those are going to be your top customers. Then it 10, maybe another week or so ago or goes by, and I'd like to have you ask them a slightly different question. Give me a list of our top 10 most profitable customers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You ask them something slightly different, although I would argue that the two questions are, exactly the same. But what's scary here is that it's very possible you're going to get the same list from these folks. Now they're going to think you're a candidate for early senility, that you just asked them the same question previously. But what happens here is you are going to get that same ranking. So there's this perception that our largest volume customers are our most profitable customers. And that's simply not the case. In fact, I'll mathematically prove it here. I'll show you that, really volume does not equal profitability necessarily. And so we really have to discern. So I'm a big believer that we need to operate our companies from a net profit perspective. In other words, what are we going to get at the end of the day? At the very minimum, gross profitably, but net profit is really where the rubber meets the road. That's how we discern ourselves, from others in this space. So it's important for us to understand who contributes to our net profitability and really change the way that we rank customers and change the way that we look at who I'm going to, give our services to based on that contribution back to net profit. So, does everybody deserve the premier services that we offer? Of course not. But we got to figure out who's who and discern that in a logical way, not just an emotionally based way. And I think a lot of it today is emotionally based. I mean, we are not using the math side of our brain to really decide who is who out there. So let's go through a reporting and an analysis that kind of gets us a little clearer in this perspective. So some of you might have gone through this exercise before, maybe to some degree here, but I'm going to share with you what was taught to me so many years ago, and what I share with a lot of my clients here, and try to get their help them get their heads around it. So this is a customer profitability analysis, and I want to point out a couple things. One big thing is this is 12 months of data, and I do say annual report on this thing, but really what I'm looking for is 12 solid months of data. And what this tells me is if I have a new customer on board and they have not been doing business with us for a full 12 months, don't subject them to this kind of scrutiny. They're a darling until they prove themselves otherwise. So new customers do not get to play in this reporting here. So we really only want customers who have been doing business with us for a full 12 months so that all things are equal. We can compare against others in an equal manner. So the first column, very self-explanatory there, your customer names. Then the next column is 12 months of sales. Now, purposefully, I have put this in a I have had low numbers here. I've created low numbers here. And the reason I have done that is that I want to make sure that it's easy for us to kind of follow along through the columns. So again, 12 months of sales. The next column there is going to be cost of goods sold. So that's what we're going to pay our suppliers. And again, please forgive me if I'm being, slightly remedial in these things, but I want everybody to really understand, get their head around this. So cost of goods sold, and then ultimately that's going to get us down when we subtract sales from cost of goods sold from sales. Then we ultimately get down to gross margin dollars. So over the course of 12 months of this first customer on the list, they contributed $2,000 in gross margin to our company. Very important column there. The next column is the number of orders we processed for that particular customer. Now, sometimes people will be able to pull number of invoices. That's okay with me too. Some people get it even more granular and go to line items per customer, and that's okay. I mean, I think that number of orders or number of invoices is just fine for our purpose here. So we've got what did we process in the last 12 months? Then the next column is the cost of processing an order. So this is kind of where people get a little bit confused here is, well, how do I come up with the cost of processing an order? And really what it's asking us is, what does it cost us on average to take the order, pick, pack, ship, deliver, and get paid? All those functions. Now, again, a mystery here for many people. Now, don't get thrown off by the $40 here, because I'm going to tell you right now, you're not even close to $40. You're going to be somewhere in that 70 to 80, maybe even over 100. Don't freak out if your number is not 40. 40 is kind of a placeholder here so that I can demonstrate the how this analysis works. So one of the questions I get most often after these types of presentations is, I must have done something wrong. What did I do wrong? My cost processing in order came up at, $93. And generally speaking, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just who your company is and how you function. It's not going to be $40. I'm just going to tell you right now. So how do you get there? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One, you can do a really deep dive type of analysis. You can do something called activity-based costing, and generally that involves a software purchase, and certainly involves an outsider, somebody like myself, or some consultant comes in and goes around and analyzes. They look at all those functions. When you take the order, you pick the order, and they're really counting hours. How long does it take to do each one of those functions? A lot of math, a lot of observation, a lot of arguing about who does what, and how much it costs to do that, et cetera, et cetera. And you come up with a number. And it's kind of, you feel like it's scientifically based because you just paid this person a lot of money and you invested a lot of time and energy in it. Um, but I'm going to tell you, there is an easier, softer way. There is a much faster way to go about this. And the faster way, or the easier way, is you know, annual operating expenses divided by the number of orders you processed. Annual operating expenses divided by the number of orders you processed. So really this, it's a pretty darn simple math equation. You can go take a look at, 2023's operating expenses. You can take a look at how many orders in total that you processed, do a little math here, a little division, and you're going to come up with a rough, dirty number. And that's like your $93 that I threw out there, or whatever number that comes up to. Again, your number is going to be unique. If you tend to have larger dollars per transaction, larger transaction sizes, then you're going to have fewer orders, and so your cost of processing an order might be larger than typical. So don't get crazy about this one. I've had clients that had $212 per order. I've had in a very specific industry, the high tech distribution industry, those folks, some of them had $20,000 per order because they just had very few transactions and a lot of money per transaction. So again, this is a unique number to you. Once you get that number, just plug it in the column here. And then we go to the races. We're plugging it in and we move forward. Now, the next column there is what I'm saying is the product of the number of orders times cost processing an order. In other words, this is the cost to serve. This is the what you spend on each one of these customers. So let's take a look at that first example. We have a number of orders. We have a cost of processing an order. So 10 orders times $40 per order is $400. So pretty simple math once you kind of get the hang of it. You do this in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. It makes it really easy to put together. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, is this contribution to net profit. That's that last column there. And as you can see, we're in the positive $1,600. And how I get that is I took my gross margin dollars, subtracted out that cost to serve, or that $400 in this case, and this is where I came to a contribution to net profit of $1,600. Hopefully the math makes sense here, and this is just a very logical way of going about this. All of these numbers can be pulled from your software, and so we can start to get a really good picture of who is contributing positively, and then ultimately who is a negative contributor to our organization. Here's the point where it gets a little funny. This is about the point when, once you've got the data in front of you, we rank it by contribution to net profit. So you take the highest contribution down to the lowest contribution. And in many cases it is going to be negative. This is where it gets a little scary. And sometimes I tell people this is the Jack Daniels or Maalox report. You probably want to have one of those two items next to you the first time you run this report, because there's going to be some really awakening moments, some very scary moments, and a lot of heartache and headache that when you start seeing who's who. And so a lot of people quit. A lot of people stop right here and they say, you know what? I don't like this. This doesn't make me feel good. I don't agree. And they quit. Now, if you have the intestinal fortitude to move forward, more will be revealed. There'll be a lot of things that you will learn about your organization. They're not always going to feel good, but it is that harsh reality and that harsh awakening. First and foremost, as you can see here by the numbers, a vast majority of your customers are not profitable. And that is a harsh reality. In fact, especially in the HVAC distribution space, and I've done this a lot in that space, so I'm pretty confident what I'm about to tell you here is, 25% might be profitable, 75% are unprofitable. And again, harsh reality. In fact, one of the first times I presented this in public, it was in front of a group of HVAC distributors. And one gentleman stood up and said, hey, Jason, can I share a little something with the audience? I said, sure, absolutely. Anytime somebody wants to take over, I'm down with it. So the gentleman stood up and said, we ran this analysis and I went through all the same emotional arguments that you're describing. And we found out that, what did he say? It was 19% were positive and 81% were negative. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's a very interesting reality. And let's just say that a lot of the heads turned right at him. He said, you know, this was tough to look at, but it completely changed the way we look at our customers and the way we serve our customers. And so, I mean, to that point, don't be surprised if 25, maybe 27% are positive, but again, vast majority are going to be negative here, and that's tough. I mean, that's a tough realization. So why don't we just quit doing business with everybody who's not profitable? I mean, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Just let's concentrate all of our efforts. We're only going to do business with people that are positive contributors. Well, that's a lovely sentiment, but that is not reality. That's not going to do it for us. So, what we need to do is we actually need to break these customers into different profitability buckets or groups here. So, what I'll do is my next next thing I'll take a look at, or next point of analysis will be I'm going to actually draw my line in the sand. And so this red line represents kind of my threshold for pain. I'm losing money, losing money, losing money. And then eventually I'm like, okay, that's it. Enough. I've reached my threshold for pain. Generally, I'm going to set that about 20% from the bottom. So I'll put a red line in there and say, all right, everybody under here is a candidate to be fired. All right. Yes, I said it. Firing customers. Firing customers is not a bad thing. It is uh, slightly uncomfortable, to say the least. I mean, that just doesn't feel right. We're comfortable firing we fire employees sometimes, we fire spouses sometimes, but boy, firing customers, man, that just doesn't feel right. That's just not something that we are very accustomed to doing. So that's going to be a hard one for a lot of us. Now, how do you fire customers? Well, there's the old, direct approach, go pound sand method. I don't like you anymore. Here's a letter. Please go do business with somebody else. In fact, here's a map and a coupon to my nearest and dearest competitor. Go over there and be their worst nightmare. That's one way to do it. Now, generally, most of us, again, do not have the intestinal fortitude, nor do we want to create the ill will of doing something like that. So we tend to find things like, some passive aggressive ways to do this. And I think the most passive aggressive way to fire a customer is to just raise prices. You know, I guess one of the things I should kind of share with you is I do actually, once I've created these buckets, these three buckets here, I do need to label them. And we'll talk about a little bit what we do with those labels later. But I do need to kind of break them into, labeling. And so some people like the old ABC method. Everybody loves the alphabet soup here in distribution. But I'm not too down with the ABC customers. We use that. That's kind of overused here. Some people will go gold, silver, platinum. I use highly technical terms like cool guys, okay dudes, and scumbags. Now I know that's going to raise a few eyebrows. And how could you dare call a customer a scumbag? If you want to say C-level customer, it's okay with me. But there's some harsh realities we have to come to. And again, I know that this is not the most PC thing to say here, but there's some things that these quote unquote customers have been doing to us in this bottom category that we need to get a reality check on. You know, let's talk a little bit about them for a moment here. As I said before, if we wanted to fire them, we could certainly just raise prices. That is the most passive aggressive way, raise prices and hopefully get them to go do business elsewhere. Give them their own pricing matrix. We'll call it the scumbag pricing matrix, or how about the unprofitable pricing matrix, whatever floats your boat there. But yeah, our intention actually is to get them to leave us, and that's a harsh reality for a lot of people. Losing customers doesn't feel good, but honestly, it is one of the best things you can do for your organization. Remember, you have a finite amount of resources. You only have so many vehicles. You only have so much money you can invest in inventory. You have only, so much access to credit. We can't waste our precious resources on these folks down here. I mean, one of the biggest things that we spend money on, I mean, our most expensive employees are our territory managers, right? Our field salespeople. And, do we want to have them spend time on our most profitable customers? Now, don't kid yourself. They spend time with these folks down here at the bottom. They're probably their buddies. This is their golfing buddies, or this is the folks they make the donut run to on Fridays. And, they spend an inordinate amount of time hanging out with these folks here and, cultivating the business, even though they don't know it's unprofitable business, but they cultivate this business. And that's really something that we just can't afford any longer. Again, a finite resource. We need to be redirecting our territory salespeople to work with our more profitable companies out there. So a lot of people ask the question, well, how do I get the salesperson to quit calling on them? Well, this isn't a tough one here. You quit paying them. You know, quit paying commission on this group down here. Make them all house accounts. Managing salespeople is not that difficult. You grab them by the wallet and you show them where you want them to go. Quit paying commission on the people down here at the bottom of the list. We've got to get their resources, that deployable resource, that really not only expensive, but amazing talented resource. We need to put it in the right place and to have it spending time with customers that are actually contributing back to our bottom line. Again, this was a huge 2x4 to the head moment for me. This was this light bulb coming on saying, wow, redeploying the assets. Another big light bulb for me when I started analyzing this was in inventory management. I found that obviously in distribution, we have duplication of inventory, duplication of lines. We tend to invest in lines, that do the same darn thing. And what I had found when I actually really started digging into this is that I was carrying entire lines of product, entire brands, just for dogs and bums. The people down at the bottom of the list. And so it really helped me with inventory consolidation or line consolidation. That was again a big aha moment for me. I was able to really, stop investing in certain lines that were really preference based, and I could really refocus my time and attention on those lines that allowing me better buying power, et cetera, et cetera. It was a great line consolidation exercise when I learned this. Now, I want to go back here to raising prices. As you might have noticed here, I added one more column to our analysis here, and that's days to pay. So there's a general tendency. I mean, this is actually a strong correlation between the people that are down at the bottom of the list, your least profitable customers out there, the most negative, if we want to call it what it is, and their length of time to actually pay their accounts. And so again, strong correlation between days to pay and profitability. So even if you raised your prices to this group, they may accept that new pricing, but they're not going to pay you anyway. So you just shifted your problem over to an accounts receivable collections problem. And so again, I'm going to give you another tactic here to help move them along to someone else is no more credit. In other words, these become COD. They're house customers, but they're also COD customers. We reserve our extension of credit for those folks who contribute to us in a positive, well, not technically in a positive way, but are willing to play ball with us in a way that we wish to work with. So, those are some big things we can do. Another thing that I generally will recommend to people is certainly do not deliver to these folks for free, and you may not deliver to them at all. You may just say, hey, if you want something from us, you're coming to us, you're coming to the location to pick it up, and you're paying cash. You know, debatable whether you want to run a credit card for these folks. I mean, but that's up to you entirely. But there's no accounts, there's no. You're really just not serving them, and definitely, I'm not going to go out and get non-stock items for these folks either. It's what I got on the shelves. Okay, I'm not expending any additional effort for this group down here. Um, I'm not going to transfer product. That's the other big killer in our organizations. I mean, that's a huge operating expense. There is the transfer of product around the slinging of product around our locations. And for these folks, I'm not going to transfer product in for them. Again, my goal is to fire them. Why am I going to give them any type of service that, allows them to remain? I know, and you're looking at me like, man, Jason, you are pretty harsh. These are draconian measures. This isn't the way business is done, and I understand all those emotional feelings. I really do because I went through this. It's been over 20 years ago now, but I've went through this, and I do go through this with my clients when I do this on a private basis, and we work through these types of issues. But I need to share one. I mean, if you really want to think about this, if you were to send a letter to the very worst customer on your list, dear Mr. or Mrs. Bum, we did this customer profitability analysis and we discovered that you're the very worst customer that we have. Do you think you're telling them anything they don't know? I mean, seriously, these folks have been using your money. They've been stringing you out financially. They've been making you run through hoops. I'm going to tell you right now, they are the ones who are returning stuff and using you for warranty service, even maybe when they didn't buy it from you. They've been abusing you for a very, very long time. You just figured it out today. So don't kid yourself. This is something that you need to do. They have been pushing you around for a long time, and we need to push back. It's time to let them be somebody else's worst customer. Let's move up to this group right here. And now this group here, this is going to be the vast majority of your customers here, probably 50%, maybe even a little bit, slightly more than that. Now, they're negative. Make no bones about it. But we don't want to fire these folks. They actually get a little bit of a stay of execution because they do provide value to our organization. Now, what is that value? The value that they bring is volume. They bring us enough volume in in the transactions that we get to enjoy the discounts from our suppliers, the ones that we prefer. So again, they allow us enough, sales volume or enough purchasing power to receive the discounts that we enjoy. So there is a claim to fame here. This is a stay of execution for this group. Now, are they negative? Absolutely, they're negative. But I think we can work with this group here. They tend to be negative because of maybe certain little behaviors in here. And maybe these are things that we have that have happened, we've allowed to happen over the time. we haven't really paid attention to, and we have not found solutions for. But I want to share a little bit about typically why they're negative and maybe what we could do to correct this just a little bit. Make no mistake, you are not going to convert all these folks to profitability. That just ain't going to happen. The mantra with this group is when I share with this with people is lose less money. That's all we're trying to do. We might be able to pop a few of the ones at the top over to the cool guys or the green space to the profitable the profitable group there. But it's not going to be a whole lot of them. You know, our mantra here is just lose less money. Now, how do we do that? Well, there's a couple levers here. The two big ones that I tend to look at here are first and foremost gross margin. So what I'm going to attack here is, my pricing structure generally, and see, hey, if I'd taken the time to really um, find that 1 or 2% that is probably hidden somewhere in the matrix for this group of customers. Again, I'm a big believer in raising prices. I think raising prices is something as a distributor we have got to do on a more regular basis than we currently do today. Generally speaking, we raise prices when that cost has been raised to us. We wait until that time. When a supplier raises the prices, then we go ahead and let's say they raise them by, I don't know, I'm going to pick an arbitrary number. How about 5%? And we generally will pass on that increase of 5% to our customer base. We're fairly lazy in the way that we price in many cases. Some of you are enlightened and don't do that, but I'd say the vast majority still just pass along that price increase. So I learned a long time ago that that is a really poor way to look at this. I'll tell you, when the manufacturer raises prices to us, this is this golden opportunity to make more money and blame somebody else. This is bad news when you have to share a price increase with your customer base. I might as well, I have to be strategic and smart with this. And here's the beauty is I get to blame the manufacturer. Hey, it's not us, man. No, man, I'm your distributor, man. We're together, you and me. And it's that mean old manufacturer that did this to us. And so we have this golden opportunity. And I really think that if we don't take advantage of that opportunity to find another percent or two in our pricing and in our margin, we're shooting ourselves in the foot here. That could be a whole nother webinar I'd share with you, but I'm going to give you just some quick, dirty basics. Understand that in any supplier line that we carry, the contractor only knows what he should be paying, he or she should be paying. It might be 5% of those items, you know, the top 5%. That might be what they're going to compare you on. The rest of the 95%, you have an opportunity to improve margins. So again, on the top 5% of those items, the most popular items, the ones that, everybody bloodies their knuckles around, with those items, I might just pass on the 5% increase. That's fine. Because if you don't, the market's going to kick you in the teeth. After that, though, as they start to decline in popularity, these items, and I use what's called a hits ranking to do that, but as they start to decline in popularity, I might say, okay, I'm going to raise this group by about 5.5%. Then as they get a little slower in movement or declining in popularity, I might say, okay, maybe 6%, et cetera, et cetera. I think you understand the less popular the popular the item is in your database of this, for the one supplier line, I should be able to make more margin. And I think this is this amazing margin opportunity that a lot of us pass up. So I would challenge us, especially in this yellow group here, is to look at how can I just find a couple ways to improve margin under the radar, and I swear to you that there is at least another percent available to you if you just know how to dig. So raising margins, that's one really great tactic. On the flip side, there number of orders. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. As you saw, I tried to kind of demonstrate this in the spreadsheet here. But what I find here is that the reason these folks are less profitable is because of the number of transactions they do with us. So they tend to be really small orders multiple times. And the classic example here is a technician coming to your counter. These folks might come here 2 to 3 times a day. And we have those people, don't we? That come to the counter, multiple times a day, small transaction, small transaction, small transaction. Well, all of those add up to a lot of transactions over the course of a year. So if we multiply that by the cost of processing an order, it's going to be expensive to serve those kinds of customers. And yes, theoretically, could they be a little cheaper to serve than maybe others? Yeah, maybe. But let's not get into the funny math of trying to fiddle with that cost of processing an order. It kind of is what it is. So let's not get too crazy with that one. What I would challenge you to do is really find how can we, I mean, this is kind of the golden question. How do we reduce the number of transactions and not affect the volume? In other words, I want them to spend the same amount of money or more, it'd be lovely, but same amount of money, but I'm just having, they're going to be larger orders less frequently. I don't want to mess around with volume, but I got to reduce the number of transactions to make that customer a little either lose less money or maybe even profitable in that case. So a couple of ways to look at this. I'm a big believer that we can utilize the accessory items functions inside of our system. So the go together or add on orders, there's a lot of ways of expressing that. If we can do that, ultimately there's going to be more gross margin dollars to work with here to offset the cost of processing order. That's one tactic to go about. But to actually reduce the number of transactions, I think a couple ways I would look at that. One, I would consider a VMI setup or vendor managed inventory setup at the customer site. Now, please don't consign this inventory. This is where you put, and I should probably slow down and explain this, is you put a representative amount of SKUs or items at the customer's headquarters or at a designated location. And those technicians in the morning can reload, based on what work they have coming up. That's one way to attack it. Um, and then you would just on a weekly basis or regular basis, you replenish the bins at that customer site, and then you're doing a kind of a mass replenishment versus having a lot of little nickel dime orders. That's one way to attack this. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to caution you, please do not consign that inventory to the customer. When you consign inventory in a customer space, you have just lost control of your money. And there's ultimately going to be an argument when those numbers, when the reconciliation occurs between your site. So sell them the first order. What I would do is, and I've done in the past, is I will sell at special terms. So I might say, I'm going to give you 120 days to pay for this. Or heck, I'm going to go, I'll give you 180 days to pay for this stuff, but it's your inventory. And so it's a really important distinction. If you're going to get into VMI or into, inventory cribs or bins on a customer site, please let it be their inventory. Do not have your inventory sitting out there. Anyhow, that's it's a great way to reduce the number of SKUs. Now, again, we are really good at inventory management. That's what distributors are. Contractors are not. And so if we can manage this by running some reporting and realizing, what are the top 30 to 50 SKUs that they're buying from us constantly, wouldn't it be more efficient if we had those items on your site? I think you can work with some folks to talk logic. Now, not everybody's going to be into this, and they might be very married to the methodology they're using right now, the step and fetch it type of methodology. You can talk to them about creating van stock for their technicians based on the types of items that particular technician keeps buying over and over again. Again, we do a little hits ranking. We can see what the patterns are. We're great at pattern recognition. And so these are things that we can do to maybe mitigate that need for coming to the counter over and over and over again in the same day. So that's one of the tactics or one of the tricks that most people will do. The other tactic is when we have to step back and ask ourselves the question, is this costing the contractor more money to do business this way? Well, and the answer is yes. A lot of folks don't really think about the soft costs on the contractor side. So each of these orders here, require a purchase order, so that somebody has to create the purchase order, and then somebody has to receive that product into whatever system they're running on their side, and then somebody has to create the payable and pay for that invoice. And so again, there are soft costs on their side as well. Now, this is something that we need to bring to the attention of the financial side of that contractor. So a suggestion that I have, and I've had clients do this, is our CFO or our controller go meet with their controller and talk a little bit about, hey, here's how we're conducting business together. We appreciate the business, but I think together we can do it more efficiently. And sometimes, the branch manager will go do this, but I really would caution you, don't have your territory salesperson do this with a purchasing agent on the other side. Neither of them have skin in the game. That's not how they get paid, and it's not what they're interested in. So my suggestion here is I want you to make sure that it is a financial person on your side meeting with a financial person on their side, and then talk it out. Hey, here's what's going on. How can we work together to reduce the soft costs, the transactional costs associated with this? I had a great example where a client of mine, they went after, and the president and CFO actually went together to go meet, and this was a concrete construction supply house. And so they were meeting with a concrete contractor, large, very large one. They didn't want to lose, and they went and shared the information. Said, "Love doing business with you all, but the way we're conducting business is expensive for both of us." Now, the president of this concrete contractor said, "Hey, we just did a an analysis of how much it costs us to create a PO or cut a PO, and it's about $100 each time." So all of a sudden, my client had a very willing audience to share this information with, and between the two of them, they were able to work out how do we conduct business uh, in a much more cost-effective way. And so I challenge you that there are ways to change the profitability on this yellow group here. But I will tell you, you're not going to bang everybody up with the profitability. It just ain't going to happen that way. Mantra is lose less money. That's really what we're shooting for in that big group of, in this case, yellow customers here. Now let's move on. I want to move on to the darling group here, the green group. Now, clearly, we do not want to fire these folks. Okay, these are the darlings. They are the few that contribute positively to our net profit. And so, what we have to be very careful of is that we don't want to lose them. And sometimes what will happen is, because these are not always going to be, and they're generally not going to be your largest volume customers. And so, sometimes a little negligence goes into play here. And so we take them for granted. They're just so darn easy to work with. They don't even fight us for margin. They kind of go steady Eddie, and they pay us in a reasonable amount of time. And so we don't really we just neglect them. We don't go ask them, hey, how's it going? What can we help you with? And we don't try to expand our business. So my challenge with you is, once you determine who these folks are, you got to show a little love. Because what can happen is, if we do neglect them, they might go checking out some of the other supply houses. And when they do that, all of a sudden we're going to go chase them with our wallet. And then the next thing we know, they were a profitable customer, and now they're slightly unprofitable, and they're in that yellow group. And now, we've just shot ourselves in the foot because we didn't show them the love that we probably could have in the first place. So first and foremost, identify who these folks are. If you take people golfing, or you have loyalty trips, or fishing trips, or whatever y'all do to show love to customers, this is your group right here. You know, Spend a little time with them. One of the things I share with clients all the time is, know who owns these companies. What does the ownership structure look like? And know two or three deep inside that structure. So, it's great to know the owner or president of that company, but who's their CFO, and Who are their top VPs or top superintendent or something of that nature. Really kind of know who's who in each one of these organizations and take it upon yourself to do this. Don't let this lay in the hands of your territory salespeople because, as you know, territory salespeople change. They go to other organizations. So if the relationship is only with that territory salesperson and that person leaves, we're on shaky ground there. So my challenge to you is know who each one of these folks are. In fact, my brother's company, this is something he did for a lot of years before it kind of got big and unruly. He would actually make contact with the president of every one of these green people here, and regardless of what market that was in. He would make contact with them on an annual basis, just make sure that they knew that he was aware of them and appreciated them. And again, he would have a very good conversation with them on a regular basis. And occasionally, if opportunity presented himself, he would go face to face. But I think it's incredibly important that we maintain relationships in this group here that is profitable. Again, there's so few of them. We got to keep them in place. One of the other things I like to share with clients around this one is how do we do business, or how do we expand that business? How do we get more with this group here? So one of the things that I share with people that it's easier to sell deeper into existing customers than it is to go get new customers. And I think all of us on this call would agree with that. That's a pretty common, sales mantra or sales axiom is that, yeah, much easier to sell deeper into an existing customer. And so what I would do is I would do a little exercise where you analyze all the green customers there, all the ones that are profitable. And then you're really asking the question, how many product categories do they buy from our organization? Now, I did this with a client several years ago, and they were in the pool supply distribution space. And, we asked that question. They had 35 different product categories in their company. And what we found is that when we analyzed all the green customers, we found that most of them did business in less than 9 categories. Well, to me, that smells like opportunity. In fact, generally speaking, I will call that the opportunities report. So I will create reporting around how many product categories are these folks participating in. My suspicion is it's going to be a lot less than you think. And that just tells me, great, I have got opportunity to go ask questions. So what I like to see people do is create what this opportunities report. Very rarely is this standard in your software, and so you might have to use a business intelligence package like Focus or uh, White Cup, to pull this kind of information. But you're pulling this data here, and what we're really doing is analyzing a single customer and asking the question, what are they spending in each one of these categories? Now, as you can see, this is kind of my quasi example of what this could look like here. Now, when you base it on dollars, sometimes though, equipment, for example, skews the numbers. It makes it look, like you're really killing it in equipment, but it's just by nature of the cost of what that equipment is. I think sometimes, and this is an option that I would love to see you all take a look at, is looking at the number of transactions or number of hits in each one of the product categories when you're analyzing a particular contractor. So we're looking at the number of sales orders or transactions in a particular product category. And when we analyze that, we can start looking for the gaps or the holes. And then I would just start creating, sales strategy around those holes. So if ladders is really light, for example, that ladder category, great. I am going to now create a campaign with this particular contractor. I am going to talk ladders with you. I'm going to get you special pricing on ladders. I am going to get you buying ladders from me. So ideally what we're looking at is if we have 50 product categories and they're only doing business in, let's say, 10 to 15 of them, I got to figure out how can I get them to buy in 20 product categories? How can I get them to buy in 30 product categories? So again, we are incrementally growing the business of those existing, customers there and the ones that are profitable. I think this is a fantastic sales direction. This is something that, as I said, I have shared this with different clients, and they've been able to really gravitate to, and they've really glommed onto. A little bit of time and energy set up in the reporting here, but I could envision your sales lead sitting down with, you know, in this case, maybe a territory salesperson, and going over an account and saying, okay, all right, looks like that the tape and adhesive category is almost non-existent here. Let's find out where they're buying it. And so really kind of developing, how do we go after those unproductive categories here, or those categories that we have holes in. And I'm telling you right now we have something to talk about in sales calls. And I think that, that sometimes is a struggle for territory salespeople, is to not know what to talk about each time. Now I've got something to talk about. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense to you all. And this has been really successful in my practice over the years. And it was just one of those silver bullet moments that I shared there. Before, I just wanted to share this last little piece here, is how do we share this information and who should know what the ranking is? Well, I think very quickly we can say, yes, our customer service people should know who's who. They should know, who are the green customers, yellow, red, and they should really, because they're going to make some net profit decisions. Am I going to transfer somebody? When am I going to deliver? Am I willing to adjust pricing? Those types of things. So they need to know who's who. But I think we also need to understand that territory salespeople need to know where their customers are ranked. Material handling is kind of an interesting one. Am I going to give a little special effort to my green customers versus a yellow one? Again, I think that you all can really figure out how, this is going to apply, but I don't want to forget about the drivers. Look, some of the stuff that we have to deliver is not light or easy, or, it's a little bit challenging. I mean, let's face it, it's a little bit tough. And as we go into the summer months here, it's going to be a little hot and sweaty in certain regards. Now, if I know that I'm delivering to a green customer, I might, go for that extra, flight of stairs to get it up there. And if I'm getting to the end of my route and I may not be able to make it, I'm going to make sure the green guys get it, and maybe the yellows, but those reds, well, hopefully we're not delivering to them. But again, once we know the ranking, we can start making better decisions. And make no mistake, these are your net profit decision makers out there. So another thing to think about is, how do I disseminate the information to our folks? And one of the best ways that I've seen is tag customers in the system. Now, we don't want to tag them with, cool guy, okay, dude, and scumbag. That's probably not a great thing to have in your database. But what I generally will tell people and coach them is a very benign system would be to add a number of stars after a customer's name in the database. So 1, 2, and 3 stars tends to work really well because it's a benign system. To us internally, we know what that means, but to someone like a contractor seeing that on their invoice, or or on a packing slip or something like that, it doesn't mean anything to them. And so I think that's a great way to alert our internal people, but not divulge anything to external people. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, how we would share this kind of information out there. So let's open this up. I apologize. I know I went a little bit, a lot closer to my deadline here, but let's open it up for questions. I know that was a boatload of information to digest. So, yeah.
A lot of good stuff. Thanks, Jason. I'm just
You
fixing
bet.
my camera on my end, but
No worries, man.
they got your contact information there.
Yes.
Like I said,
Yeah.
we're coming up on the end of the webinar here, but this will be on HRI's YouTube page forever, so you can come back and get his insights there if you weren't able to attend the live session.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions right now, which means
Okay.
everyone knows everything they need to know.
They got it. I guess I guess
Yeah.
my explanation was pretty darn good this
It was
time.
perfect.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you do have follow-ups, there's his email
Sure.
there. And I want to thank you so much, Jason. This and your previous webinar have been a big help for members.
Looks so like somebody popped in the chat. Oh, I got to thank you. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.
All right.
Right.
Well, with
Fantastic.
that, I will bid adieu and hope to see you back.
All right. Thanks.
And
Man.
thank you, everyone, for attending. Cheers.
Take care.